All right, and we are live. So, good evening, everybody. Hope you guys have had a good week. I don't know about where you're at, Mike, but the weather here has been pretty sensational.
Not too bad. A little rain went away, so that's always good. It always gets humid. People always think that because I grew up in Florida and that's humid, but it's just as bad here in the Midwest. But it's not
Yeah,
too
we
bad. It's comfortable.
yeah we get what we now call Pennsylvania weather. So where it can go from very comfortable in 60 to 97 in high humidity in a heartbeat, and then back in a couple days. Unfortunately, winter's same thing. It's been very mild from one second, and next thing you know, you're hit with like you know 15 degrees, crazy stuff. But yeah, way it goes. But it could be worse. It could be in like Louisiana or
That's true. Where it's always muggy.
something. Oh my gosh, yeah. Awesome. All right, let's see if we can get a little ticker going here across the bottom of the screen, and I'll get some comments going. Looks like we got somebody. Good evening, Mike and Nate. I am going to guess. I'm going to pull a Johnny Carson here. Get my envelope out and say that that's probably Vic. So
That the answers buried in Funkin' Wagnall's back porch in a coffee can. Yeah, that's Victor.
awesome. Hey, Vic, how's it going, buddy? Good to see you. Yeah, very cool. Oh, there. Yep, got confirmation on that. I got my phone handy, so I'll kind of scroll through here as we get there. All right. So big conversation for the night, Mike, and that is was the official release, and not just of one of the Star Wars. I think quite a few were released on the same day. Isn't that
Yep.
correct?
Jedi. Jedi was May 25th. Everything was always right around that date, but whatever that Friday was. So yeah, definitely Jedi though in Star Wars.
Yeah, I don't remember Empire to be honest with you as far as the release date. The newer stuff, I'm not sure about. I mean, I know when they got to the last round, they were all right around Christmas time because my son and I went to see a lot of those.
Yeah, we
They were always
saw.
right around.
I was in the service, but I saw Empire here in Kansas City opening day, and then I went home on vacation to Tampa, and a group of us drove to Orlando because they were showing it in 70 millimeter. And my friend John Hooper, he had everybody had a CB back then, but his also had a PA, and if anybody was in line, I apologize. 40 plus years later, as we were leaving, um, if you remember Hardware Wars, uh, when they promote it and they say you'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll kiss $5 goodbye. So as we went by the long line of people out in front of the theater, um, uh, John said, "You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll kiss $5 goodbye," and then he said, "And Darth Vader is Luke's dad."
No.
then we then we sped down west on I-4 back to Tampa. Yeah. So
How many people were throwing stuff on the ground going, damn it?
yeah,
Waiting in line for that one, right?
we were scamps, little 19-year-old scamps back then. So. And spoiler alert for those of you who might not have known that. Mark Hamill tells a story that they're getting ready to film the scene, and as they shot it in the script that everybody had, Vader says, "Obi-Wan killed your father," so you get the same reaction. But before they shot, Irvin Kershner, the director, took him aside, and he said, "What I'm going to tell you, only two people know: me and George Lucas. Now you're going to know. If it gets out, we're going to know you told it." And so he says, "It's Vader is your father." And he was like, "Oh wow!" And he used that to play it in the scene. But he says he didn't tell anybody. And at the premiere, when they're sitting there watching it, and that comes up, he's sitting next to Harrison Ford, and he said Harrison Ford leaned over to him and said, "Hey, excuse my language. I'm going to quote Harrison Ford. He said, 'Hey, kid, you didn't fucking tell me that.'" So he kept the secret, and it was. Oh, I meant to grab it downstairs. Star Wars was originally 9 stories, and I have downstairs. I have a copy of the original story treatment. Back when Luke was known as Luke Starkiller.
Starkiller.
And and it was just that if you read all the story treatments, Star Wars, what we know, you and I know, is Star Wars, but Episode 4 or New Hope, whatever you want to call it, that was the only story that had an ending, per se, so that if the film wasn't a success, you weren't left, hanging. Well, what happened to these people? So that's the brief story of Star Wars. Let's see.
Yeah.
See Victor throwing up some comments. Can anyone explain to me this $40 million bet Lucas made with Spielberg? I don't know. Oh, Keith posted on the page. I haven't seen the page earlier.
So I wonder if that's pertaining to him outdoing Jaws, because he even sent him a card. R2-D2 is reeling in.
Yeah, Bruce.
Yeah.
And then later, when E.T. passed Star Wars, George Lucas did a similar thing with all the droids, all the characters kind of acknowledging E.T. as he rose above them. I am not familiar with that. I'll have to look at Keith's post.
Not either.
But they were very competitive, those two, and they teamed up on Raiders, but they were part of that that great period in the 70s where you had Lucas and Spielberg and Coppola and Scorsese and Brian De Palma. You can't. To me, the 70s is the best decade in film. As far as quality of films and the quality of the filmmakers that came out of the decade.
And the best part is they all got along.
Yeah.
That was the big thing. No one's attitude was too big. Nowadays that's becoming such a rarity. So it's really was kind of neat to see. And I have to agree with you on 70s, and maybe that's because of our age, but the time period of film. There's a lot of 60s films I like, some 50s, but definitely 70s. The grittiness of it. They really there was a lot of firsts in a lot of different areas and genres, without a doubt. So we got a couple of comments here. Did Harrison Ford want his character Han Solo to die in Empire Strikes Back?
He wanted him to die in Jedi.
Yeah, he did, and my favorite line of Empire Strikes Back, which was "I know," that was his line. That was not cast. I think the original line was "I love you too" or something like that, and he said that's not what Han Solo said.
That's so non-Han Solo, though.
Yeah.
If he'd said "and I love you," people would be like going, "You wuss, get out of here!"
Very good. Yeah.
Get out of here,
Space Cowboy. That's right. No more credibility. Yeah. Hey, we got Connor in here. Hi, Connor. Good to see you tonight.
How you doing, bud?
Yeah. And we got some more posts going on here. Try and pull all these guys up. What we got here? Keith said Lucas thought Close Encounter was going to do better than Star Wars. I seem to remember reading that as well. Yeah. Yeah, I think Lucas was pretty shaken with Star Wars as far as it going anywhere, along with, I think a lot of people who worked. Alec Guinness himself said he thought it was going to be some crazy space fairy tale. So.
To me, Close Encounters is a better film than Star Wars. But I just think Star Wars was for everybody. Kids could see it, older people could see it. Whereas Close Encounters, I think, had a more adult audience. I think if you took a kid to see Close Encounters, I think they'd be bored. They'd perk up when the spaceships flew by, but I think the story and everything else would have bored them. So
yeah, you're right. And when you look at the actual, what you want to call maybe action time that's in that movie, and I'm speaking this as a perspective of being a kid, or younger when that came out. It's exactly right. You got a handful of minutes. Rest is dialogue. Dreyfus going nuts with dinner, and building a mud hole in the front in the living room and stuff like that. And yeah, as a kid, yeah, definitely Star Wars. I mean, you've got your pirating, your swashbuckling, you've got your dog fights, you've got your Flash Gordons. I mean, you're really hitting multiple decades there and multiple genres of things all in one. Yeah, without a doubt. So, well, I'll tell you what, we're getting a couple more in here. So was Star Wars a sleeper hit at first? Maybe you know better than I do, Mike. But I think Star Wars was a bang right out of the pocket. I mean, right off the get go.
It was, but it wasn't expected to do anything. The big film that 20th Century Fox had for 1977 was a film called The Other Side of Midnight, which was based on it's not Jacqueline Suzanne or Harold Robbins, but a similar steamy novel. The 70s were full of steamy novels, and everybody wanted it. Every theater chain wanted it, and Fox put out a little note to all the theater owners that if you wanted to play The Other Side of Midnight, you had to agree to play Star Wars for 2 weeks. So they did, because they wanted The Other Side of Midnight. And the irony is that some of the theaters, they never gave up Star Wars. We have a theater in Tampa Bay Center, where we all saw it. They played it for a year straight. They played it from May 77, and they finally had to get rid of it in 78 because, Grease was opening and Jaws 2 was opening. But it just took people by surprise that it was people really, really took to it, and multiple showings. That's why Titanic was so successful, because people are going back over and over again to see it.
Sure. Yeah, and I can vouch for that. We got here. Vic is telling us here. Star Wars was in Toronto in July '78. Yeah, I remember it being around for quite a long time. And I had said, and I can remember when it came out, I was lucky enough that I lived right across the street from what was supposedly the biggest drive-in screen on the East Coast. Capacity was it was around 1,000 cars, and they didn't wait a year or two to get a film in. They could generally get them in fairly quick, maybe not right away, but once they did, I mean, it was there. Yeah, I remember it through the summer. I remember it through the fall, and they would be open in the wintertime. And I know for a fact that the one time that we went to see it, my dad drove an old custom Chevy van with a dog box. Remember those, Mike? The engine sat in between the seats, and the dog box was the big metal box. So basically, it was the engine cover. And I can remember it was cold enough that when we pulled in and parked, there was a blanket on the dog box. I took it off and I sat on the dog box because the heat coming off the engine radiating into the metal dog box kept me nice and toasty warm the one time that I saw it. So, yeah.
Plus, Star Wars got reissued a lot. It was one of the films that was constantly reissued. They reissued it in August. I think it was August. Sometime late summer of '79, heralding come see it and see the trailer for The Empire Strikes Back. They did it again in '82, heralding come see the trailer for Revenge of the Jedi. So back then you didn't have the internet, and you didn't have access to the media that we do now. So if you wanted to see the trailer, you went and you saw you went and saw Star Wars again. And Lucas had such control over everything that he would only allow those trailers to be shown on Star Wars. So you couldn't put it on couldn't put it on another film. So if you wanted to see that trailer, you had to go see Star Wars again, and that's also how it helped it make a lot of money.
Yeah. Hey, we got Donna here tonight. Hello, Donna. Donna's telling us it definitely was a sleeper because she fell asleep there again. Sorry, Donna.
Her and Victor sleep a lot during movies.
Yeah. So, by the way, I put up the original Crawl before they came back and decided during one of their re-releases to put the words New Hope in front of it.
Yeah,
that's the way I remember it. It didn't say that episode, whatever. Yeah, just simply the way that it was. Yeah, absolutely. It's grabbed it right from there. So I thought maybe we could get some input from some people on here about first experiences. I know you and I talked about it before. I told you I saw it, at the drive-in and was blown away by it. And my poor mom begrudgingly drugged me back many, many times because I begged for it. And so let's hear from some people. What we got? Kelly on now. Hey, Kelly.
Hey, Kelly. Welcome.
Yeah. We got Vic. We got Connor. We got Donna. So let's hear from you guys. Chime in. Or if you're really interested, let me know, and I'll quick shoot you a link. We can pull you on for a minute, however, and tell us about your first experience. It doesn't have to be Star Wars. It could be, I can remember the first time I saw Empire Strikes Back at the local town theater when they still existed. So let's hear from you guys. What do you have to tell us here?
This is at the Grauman's Theater.
Mm.
Yeah. They had Star Wars, and then they were contractually obligated to play Sorcerer, the Roy Scheider film, and they played it for a week, and then they got Star Wars back.
No kidding.
Yeah, because Sorcerer just did not do the business that everybody thought it would do.
Well, I heard between. I'm sorry, Mike. I didn't mean to talk over you there, but I was going to say I heard between. We had talked before about the Sorcerer starting out not a lot of English, and the fact that it came out at the same time. That's partially what's responsible for the Sorcerer not doing well.
And Star Wars is a reason that Roy was so moody on Jaws 2, because Roy had spent his own money and he had bought full page ads. And I want to say, I know at least 10, it might have been 20 of the biggest cities, back when you had newspapers, and we used to run to the paper box and get that Friday edition and look at all the movie ads and everything. They're pretty much now existent now, I'm sure, in newspapers. But he paid for full page ads that heralded his performance in Sorcerer. And the film was well received. And I know at the end of 77, Siskel and Ebert on their Looking Back show called it, a movie that kind of got lost and you need to go see it. But everybody went and saw Star Wars. It just got lost.
Yeah, just a matter of bad timing. So Kelly's saying that she started watching the series with her daughter last week. That's awesome. Actually, just bringing the topic up the other week might kind of spark me. I have Disney Plus, so I watched the New Hope, I don't know, about 4 nights ago, and then I started on Empire 2 nights ago. Yeah, it's been a while for me, and I kind of like Jaws. I've seen them an awful lot, but it's so good to kick back and dive right back into it.
Yeah, especially if you haven't seen him in a while.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Vic, Sorcerer is a great film. There's no denying that whatsoever. I just caught that again over the winter. It really is. It's just a shame, the matter of the way that panned out. But I have a feeling no matter what came out on that day, unfortunately, would have gotten buried.
It would have got buried. It's like Farrah Fawcett dying the same day Michael Jackson died. Nobody paid attention. Groucho Marx died right after Elvis. Nobody paid attention. So,
Jeez. All right. What do we got here? William Friedland should have released it again in December. Yeah, it might have helped out a little bit, or re-release. Yeah. Was it ever re-released at all?
I think it was. I think the studio just kind of wrote it off. It had problems with the first half hour or so being in foreign languages that people weren't expecting. So a lot of people walked out or complained because they thought they were seeing an American film, and it is an American film. Just takes place all over the world. But I meant when I was in the movie business, and somewhere I've got two giant 1,000-foot reels, maybe, but of trailers from the 70s and 80s and 90s that I collected and saved. And when we would do theater parties for the staff, I would put together like a 45-minute reel of trailers, and I would always run the Sorcerer trailer. And these kids in the 90s are watching it, going, "Oh, that looks so good. Did it ever come out? Is that coming out soon?" It's like, no, it's 20 years old, but go find it. Yeah.
Yeah. And the only place I've been able to track it down is on Amazon Prime. I can't find it really much anywhere else, but yeah. So, all right, Vic, I rented it and watched it back to back on the same day. Yeah, it's definitely a film you can do that with.
Oh yeah,
without a doubt. All right. My second favorite film of '77 was Close Encounters. Yeah, it was a good film.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good taste in films.
Yeah, without a doubt. So this has always been a big debate with me and other people. What was the better sequel pertaining to the original trilogy? Was it Return of the Jedi, which I don't think did as well, but seemed to work better with the younger crowd, or was it Empire? What's your take on it, Mike?
Empire. Easily Empire.
Yes.
I think by the time they got around to Jedi, I think Lucas was more into the marketing and the merchandising rights, because when Fox financed it, in his contract, the only thing Lucas really had control of was that he kept the merchandising rights for the action figures and the dolls and everything else. So he had the Ewoks, and then the last the Rise of Skywalker, the little pig thing that said, it's like, I saw the trailer, I was like, well, that's going to be a toy. But I think Empire, I think, is darker. I think everybody gives their best performance. I think Jedi, they were kind of, not walking through it, but it was like, okay, we've done this for 6 years, 7 years. Let's finish it up and move on. And I also think that Empire is the one that Lucas messed with least when he started doing special editions and adding stuff. So, yeah. So Empire gets my vote.
I 100% agree with it. I have probably more of a vivid memory of watching that one than I do watching the first one or watching Jedi. And yeah, I have to agree with you too, as far as marketing, and not that parts of the film took on a little bit of campiness, but a little bit more lighthearted, definitely a little bit more kind of cute and fuzzy. Especially bringing in the Ewoks, which, if I'm not mistaken, probably originally, I think they were considering bringing in Wookiees. I think Ewok was kind of replaced, but I can remember going watching Empire, and number one, just the complete scenery changes from the first film.
Yeah.
Everything was, in my opinion, an extremely dark film. Very dark in its settings, very dark in its tones, and what it handled. And I remember getting through the movie, and some of the things that that Luke faces there. You know, he goes into the cave and strikes down Vader, and he sees himself. I mean, it really kind of sets you back, you know, and even the way it ends, you know, obviously loses a hand, goes down the chute, you know, and has to be rescued, and it's you're left on such a cliffhanger, and I can remember going, there's no way that this can end this way, you know. So you know, someone's good God has to win. There's something here, but that's what drew me to it so much. It was much more of a dose of, you know, not always going to come out on top, you know, than the first one or the third one.
Yeah.
So we've got a couple of questions here. Are there additional scenes in the director's cut of Empire Strikes Back?
I can't recall any. I know the big scene that they added in Star Wars was Jabba. Jabba was played by a person in Star Wars, and then they just kind of CGI'd the big fat Jabba we know over him. And then another thing I hated was that Greedo fired first, which is you know, blasphemy.
Well, yeah. And the worst part of that was Han's head goes like this right before, and it looks so you know, mechanical. Yeah, and he did quite a bit of the CGI of trumping up Tatooine. He said he always wanted Tatooine to look like a bigger, more thriving place than what it was, and he threw a lot there in the background there as well. So, and you know, little things like you know, if you remember watching it originally, you know, the nice smudge of Vaseline under the land speeder so you wouldn't see the wheels. You know, stuff like that he did away with, which that I understand, but yeah, I have to agree. I do know that there were some cut scenes. I don't remember them making it into the director's cut on Empire, Vic, to answer your question. One of them, which was when they were in the Battle of Hoth, the Wampas were actually coming in and actually attacked and took out. I think it was some. I can't remember if it was some of the rebel soldiers or if it was some of the snowstorm troopers. But that was that scene was, it was shot. You can track it down. I've seen it before. Basically, they're in the tunnels in the caves, and there's an access door, and I guess one or two of them happen to get in. Right, I think it was right before like Vader entered and took out one or two rebels. Yeah. Yeah, pretty interesting. Yeah. Okay, what do we got here? 1983 was all Part 3 films. Yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah. Only Return of the Jedi was enjoyable. Yep. We had what? Superman
3, Jaws 3D.
Jaws 3D. Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, Empire is still to this day my go-to. I have to be honest, I never went and saw Jedi. When it first came out in the theaters, I waited till it came out on HBO. I was getting a little bit older, and it kind of came off as a little bit more cute and fuzzy. Although it still did have some, you know, the last probably half hour, 40 minutes, definitely got into some darker themes. But yeah. What else we got here? I didn't know Chewie had actual lines until recently. Yeah, he spoke all of his lines. David Prowse spoke all of his lines, you know, and then obviously the sounds were dubbed over. Yeah.
It's like the holiday special.
Oh, yeah.
With his father, Itchy. Lord.
You know, that is, has made a bit of a comeback and is becoming somewhat popular. And I can remember watching, I think, what stood out to me the most wasn't just the Wookiee family, but what stood out to me the most was the amount of makeup that was on Luke's face. And I don't know if maybe it was right after Mark had his car accident, but that's why. But man, that poor guy, he looked like they were putting like Bondo on him to get him ready and fill a hole in the fender. I mean, it was like glaringly obvious. Yeah. All right, what do we got? Is Empire Strikes Back? Yes, in my opinion, absolutely think so.
Yeah, it's up there. Godfather 2, I'd put it up there with. Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I want to say it was one of the most successful ones as well, perhaps.
Yeah. It was,
I'm not.
it made some money.
Yeah,
It made some money and even made money on during the reissue in 97.
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. I lined up. I lined up when all three movies came back out to go see them in the theaters in the '90s. Drug my then girlfriend, now wife, through all three of them in some little cramped theater in Western Pennsylvania to go see them. So yeah,
did
absolutely.
you get any of the giveaways? Did you
Uh,
get, I think,
nope.
I think New Hope was a comic book. Empire was little micro machines. I got a bunch of those somewhere. And then
Yeah,
Jedi was a special edition Luke, carded Luke from Kenner, but for Jedi.
I had nothing. I was actually in college out in Indiana, Pennsylvania, very small town, Western Pennsylvania. And when I say small, I mean, I think the second year I was there, a Walmart came in and moved in, and
Wow.
there was I mean, a lot of people were against having a Walmart because it was very much a mom and pop town. It's kind of like being on the vineyard. Everything is locally owned, and the movie theater was still the local town theater, and so small, old, cramped up seats, and for someone my size, was a rough 2 to 3 hours sitting in one of those because I can't sit in those and keep my legs out in front of me. So you're constantly shipped in, and it was nothing. You waited in line, you got a ticket, you went in, you saw the movie, and but that was enough for me. So, and since we're talking about trilogies, then Mike, and again, you guys at home too. Um, what about the best of the other two trilogies? Because I mean, I shouldn't say obviously, but I'm hoping, Mike, that you obviously put the first trilogy above the other two. But what's your take on the other ones? What's your take on the ones from the early 2000s and the ones from a couple years ago?
The prequels, they were okay, except it was hard to explain why they had better technology in the time before Star Wars took place.
Sure.
And also Princess Amidala's hair, it kept changing, and it was like she was like Rapunzel at the end. At the end of her, in the end of the last one, she's got her in her coffin, whatever she's in, and her hair is like down to her knees. And it's like it's a lot of work. Jar Jar, of course, kills it for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they had their moments. I liked Ewan McGregor was good as Obi-Wan. I like Qui-Gon, Darth Maul. Everyone loves Darth Maul. But I think the second set, 7, 8, 9, because it had the original characters, and it wasn't. And I think the fact that Lucas may not have been as involved in the second set as the first, because he directed all three of the prequels, and it wasn't. I always joke that I'm pretty sure that Ron Howard directed American Graffiti because that's a well-directed film, and the three prequels were terrible. And I remember when Scorsese won the Oscar, and it was Spielberg, Coppola, and Lucas presenting, and Coppola says, "The three of us are here because we've all know what it's like to win an Academy Award for directing." And George Lucas says, "Well, I never won an Academy Award." And Spielberg says, "So why are you here?" And it was funny because I was thinking the same thing. And I don't know if it's because, he took 20 years off. He decided to focus more on Industrial Light and Magic and the technical aspect. But yeah, but then the three prequel or not prequels, the three sequels, um, the third trilogy, I enjoyed them. I thought they were well made. I liked the story. It was nice seeing uh, all the familiar characters, and I actually I wrote a piece on Medium Mics because I would watch the trailer for Rise of Skywalker over and over again, and I would cry. I would cry. And I wrote a thing. Why does this trailer make me cry? And I realized I tear up when it says the final whatever, the final chapter in the blah 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 blah. And I'm like, damn, there's not. This is it. It's not. It's gone. There's no more of these characters that were such an important part of of my teenage years. So yeah. So
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, I think the newer ones. I think the newer ones were done really well. Um, I think it was a good mark to go back and revisit certain settings. And it's one thing I think I have to give Lucas credit was his philosophy all through at least the first three was you weren't in the same setting all the time. You know what I mean? You went from planet to planet, setting to setting, no matter what. And he definitely stayed true to that with the prequels. And as much as some things about the prequels, was not a fan of. Wasn't real quick to jump on what seemed like the beginning of the cancel culture with those movies because he really, in those movies, really took a beating on. And it's only been in the last maybe like 3-4 years. Yeah, I don't know, maybe 5-6 years since the new series has come out. That now people are coming around and going, they weren't all that bad. So they had their finer points and they had their cheap shots in there too. But yeah, I do agree. The new ones were done well. I think part of the reason I think JJ really stripped things down a little bit, took it back rather than trying to outdo the last, set of effects and go more natural. Um, but I also think that he was trying to kind of not have an ace in the hole, but I think he was trying to kind of not only reach new viewers, but reach viewers like us who grew up with the original and wanted to see what looked like Tatooine, wanted to see what reminded you of something similar to like Dagobah or something along those lines, or wanted to see an old Star Destroyer again. So yeah.
And I also hated speaking of Dagobah, I also hated the CGI Yoda. So
Oh yeah. His face didn't look right. Yeah. I have to agree.
Oz's birthday.
Yeah. Kelly's chiming in. My husband is not a fan of the last three. I gotta say, when I went to see the first one, when Han Solo finally gets it, it's like you took the floor out of the room. I mean, everyone, all the oxygen was gone. Everyone just, and that was it.
And I also think the Adam Driver, Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
He got better in the other films, but he was just so whiny in the first one, and I was just like, but he got better as a bad guy because I remember my son called me. They were watching the Oscars, and my granddaughter was probably 6 or 7, and Adam Driver was nominated. And when they showed Adam Driver on the screen, my granddaughter said, "I hope he loses." And my son said, "Why?" And he goes, "Because he killed Han Solo." I was like, "Oh." I was like, "Oh, that's a chip off the old block." Yes.
Yeah. And I have to agree. He was kind of whiny, kind of high maintenance, over the top a bit in the first one. And I think that was part of maybe Hayden Christensen's deal too in the original prequels because he was that way as well. Yeah, I think that really kind of hindered things at times. We got here.
Rogue One is the best. Yes, I do too.
Yeah, I agree.
Of all the standalones, Rogue One is the best.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, without a doubt. We got here. When Han Solo died, I was literally verbally abused by family members. Poor Vic. Sorry to hear that, buddy. I'm sure somebody got beat up or something worse for dropping that dime. Although it was, I mean, it was a known fact for years that Harrison wanted him killed off much earlier on. So I think it was, we all kind of knew it was coming. We just didn't know when. So, but at any rate, what else we got?
Toys. The toys.
Yeah, so I had to include some of the toys tonight. So it's one thing we didn't talk about, mainly because, to be honest with you, I mean, this was the biggest and the first, or one of the first movies that really marketed to the toys. And I was perfect age when Star Wars came out and was into it hook, line, and sinker. So I tried to pull up a little mix of some of the different things here. Yeah, the more memorable stuff, obviously, like your original send away kit that came out, basically for $40 or whatever it was. They were selling you cardboard with a promise.
Yeah, you got a box. You got a box for Christmas. Yeah.
Yeah, the early bird. All the different ships. Put a picture down there of the 12-inch figures, which weren't. I don't think they did as well, but they were around. I remember friends having them. Trade them off. I had a 12-inch Boba Fett. I still have him floating around somewhere. Missing some.
I've got a Han Solo, original Han Solo downstairs.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, very cool. And I even grabbed a couple things out here tonight. So I'll just quick pull a couple into view. So, and what's cool is the bulk of this stuff was mine, and then some of this stuff actually, my son and I got into collecting. So we got a little Hoth action here. What I'll do is kind of bring this down a little.
Oh, I have that. A Tauntaun. I have that downstairs too.
Yeah, I got the Tauntaun. Now, there were two different ones. This is the less rare one. The really rare one was the one that had the belly that opened up that you could put Luke into.
Oh, I got to go see which one.
Get your hands on that one. Yeah, that one is worth, I know just from recollecting with my son, considerably more than what this guy is worth. But he still has everything with him. I have his reins put away. He still has the holster on him, and got Luke there. So we got this guy. And I brought this guy out, I have everything with this guy. He's in really good shape. My son and I actually bought him years later. Bringing in Jabba. He's got his little pipe with his little globe with the frogs in there. And Salacious Crumb still with him. So
it's nice.
Yeah, good stuff. Luckily, my son, as much as he would get stuff out and play with it, he was also a bit of a collector, which I had never been. We'd play with stuff till it was broken and then it was gone. And so he would always take care of stuff and always wanted to display things, which is really cool. And then I have, I'm sorry, Mike, go ahead.
I was going to say, I would get my son. My son was big in the Ninja Turtles, and I'd buy him that for Christmas and stuff. And then when we moved, he was packing up his room, and they were all still in packages. And I said, "How come you didn't open them?" He says, "You don't open your toys." And I'm like, "No, but I'm 40. You're 12. Play with them." Yes.
And I still have this guy. Now, this is mine. This is mine from when I was, I don't know, probably about 8 years old, I think, when this came out. Original backdrop with majority of these were my originals here. Some of them have everything with them, some of them not so much, but they were mine, so I tend to hold on to them. So even have both the Han Solos. There was two Han Solos. You had the early one was the big-headed Han Solo, who obviously was known because he had a very large head. And then you had the small-headed Han Solo, which was the second one that came out. They thought that the big-headed one was not as accurate, so they kind of resculpted the head there for him. So,
do you have the Jawa with the vinyl?
Vinyl cake? No, absolutely not. In fact, I have the naked Jawa, who just came in the birthday suit. So all that's left of him. So at any rate, just like, whoop, almost lost my camera there. Sorry about that. I'm worried about getting motion sickness there, Mike. Yeah, so just grabbed a couple of things out just to kind of share with you guys. Some of the toys. And we'll get into some more here in a bit. Let me go back to our split screen. Hit a couple comments. Does Java come with Princess Leia? No, Princess Leia in that costume was actually never made during the original three movies. I believe there was one made much later on when they started coming back out. It was like I don't know
Power
what
of
they
the
called
Force.
it. Yeah, Power of the
Force.
Force, and then I think like the Black Series they came out with one. I do know that guys have tried to make their own version of the original of what would look like an original, and that they do sell them, but never made one. However, the irony to that is um, he himself actually has a leash with the neck clasp that was around her neck attached to the toy, but unfortunately, um, no Princess Leia.
No
So
Leia. No Leia in the leash.
no, as much as we all wanted that, right? At
Mm.
any rate, a little too much information there. I'm kidding. What else we got here? Is that the Millennium Falcon ship in the background? The background to the prop was actually the X-wing fighter being chased down right along the surface of the Death Star. To be honest with you, we've got a couple of the ships. We've got the Millennium Falcon. I have the X-wing. I have was the X-wing from Empire. It was a battle damaged one. We've got the twin pods, a bunch of different stuff. I could sit and bore you guys all night long with this kind of stuff. So, yeah, you're right. We got there. There you are correct. Yeah. And I threw up pictures of some of the Power of the Force stuff. We've collected some of those things too. They unfortunately really aren't holding value. Yeah, they come up a little bit, really not that much, but that was the toy line. The movies were getting re-released, with the special effects in them, and unfortunately, collectors just went absolutely bonkers with them, and the market was flooded with them, and so unfortunately, the value of them really is never. I know certain ones are worth some money. So there are some rare ones, but nothing that I have. I probably have 30 or 40 of them that I see is really of any great value at this point. So. What we got else here? I had the Millennium. You know what? I never had the Millennium as a kid. I wanted that so bad. I thought that was like the toy. I mean, had an AT-AT, had some other things, but Millennium Falcon was the toy. Just didn't have it. Yeah.
I think I've got the Empire Millennium Falcon.
Yeah, I'm sure there's been a million renditions of that just from the first three movies, Jedi, Empire. I believe there was some like tri-logo stuff too. So the Luke Skywalker suit with the phaser. Okay, that must have been from the Power of the Force guys. Yeah. All right, we'll keep kind of cruising along here. So I thought I'd get into some rare items. Talk a little bit about some of the rare items, and I try to throw a little bit of a mix up here. There's some rare like poster art. The collector's cards. There was one or two that were pretty rare. There, you talked about the vinyl cape Jawa, and I threw up that two of the posters I threw up was the Star Wars birthday poster. Apparently, if you can get your hands on an original copy, that is worth quite a bit more than a lot of the other original prints, which I had no idea.
Don't tell my wife. I got one in the basement.
Yes. Oh, you're kidding me. Do you really? Wow. Yeah. My understanding is that one is worth a pretty considerable amount. So
because they were only shipped to the theaters that had played Star Wars for a year.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Wow. You're sitting on a bit there. So as long as your wife loves you, you're covered, right?
That's right.
And the middle poster, the Revenge of the Jedi, some of those were actually made and pumped out there until Lucas said, yeah, that's not really a Jedi thing. So then they had changed it. I don't know if they hit here. I want to say they hit, I don't know, other places, maybe Japan or something like that. I don't quite remember the whole backstory. So, and I put the poster up there that you sent me a picture of, Mike, which I have never seen. Now I recognize the font, but outside of that, I don't know anything about that. So
This was created for the 1976 World Science Fiction Convention, which was held in Kansas City. Charles Lippincott, who sadly has passed away, did all the marketing. It was him, not Irvin Kershner, Gary Kurtz, Mark Hamill, and they came to the show and they printed 500 of these posters. I have 2 of them. And the art is very familiar. It's kind of the same art that was used on the first issue of the comic book. Howard Chaykin also did the art for the comic book. And then one of my proudest Star Wars moments, in 2016, the convention was back in Kansas City, and they recreated the event, and I got to host and moderate the Q&A with the various people that had been here in 76, and just to hear the stories. Gary Kurtz was there, Charles was there, Alan Dean Foster was there. It was just a nice way to me. It was just kind of like full circle from as a kid. The one picture I sent you of the black book,
mm-hmm.
the different Star Wars logo on it. I had a bunch of us in school. We were science fiction nerds, and we were part of a little local Tampa science fiction club called the Andromeda Society, and we all rode away to 20th Century Fox, and we all got sent, and I've still got it downstairs, a nice cardboard mailer, and then with the promo book inside, and it had a letter, here's Star Wars coming soon, signed by Charles Lippincott. And then when I did the show here, I said, look, you sent me this 40 years ago. This is the Mylar Coming to Your Galaxy This Summer poster. They're rare because if they're not kept, well kept, the Mylar begins to wrinkle and kind of crinkle up on the poster. They also did this Mylar advance with Superman the movie, and I remember we had that. It was just a beautiful silver poster with the Superman emblem on it, and thankfully I got one. The manager gave me one, but I came into work one day, and on the poster he had gone out to the hardware store and bought like mailbox letters, and he had put Superman under the logo. He glued them to the poster. And I said, what did you do that for? He says, well, a lot of people thought that was a boat. I was like, no, it's yes. But yeah, Come to Your Galaxy This Summer.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I tried to throw up a bunch of different things. I threw that up. I threw your book up. Things at least I remember a lot of people having, Star Wars, the bed sheets, the Halloween costumes, and
top
anyone
left,
our age remember
top
those?
left corner is the comic book, and you can see the art is very, very similar to the advance poster.
Yeah, my understanding is if you have an original of the first one, and I believe that was a Marvel comic, that they're pretty salty right now, getting hard to come by. Yeah, and even odd things, and the shoes. I don't remember the shoes. Apparently, Clark's had licensed a whole series of sneakers. I simply don't remember that. I had a belt buckle, which it was the 1970s. We had big brass belt buckles. I remember having the R2D2 and C3PO belt buckle proudly displayed on my corduroys with my big collared velour shirt. You know what I mean?
Nice.
Going back in time there. So, and some other things in the board games and stuff like that. And one of which on there, I have to take a picture of because I still have this guy. These guys are, from what I understand, fairly rare because not many were licensed, and that is they made some licensed ceramics. I think they made three: C-3PO, R2-D2, and I think the real hard one to get is Darth Vader, and he had red eyes. And I have the original ceramic R2-D2 bank from when I was a kid.
Oh, wow.
Still completely intact, still has the rubber stopper in the bottom, and has the official Star Wars 1977 20th Century Fox on the bottom. And
Nice.
how I didn't destroy this growing up, I have no idea, but it is fantastic shape. My son used it when he was little, kept it in his room as well. So yeah, so I grabbed that guy and then two more things, and I'm going to shut up. And to me, right, what is one of the hard to find guys that I had talked about the other week, and that was, in the original Cantina scene, you had the Snaggletooth, little guy in the maroon
Yeah,
suit.
yeah.
When Sears released their own canteen, which is basically a cardboard stand-up, you got Greedo, you got Hammerhead, you got Walrus Man, and you got this version. And that is the blue Snaggletooth. He was only released through Sears. You can never buy him as a character, and so you're only going to find him loose, or unless you have an original Sears kit. This guy here is worth more than from what I understand, the actual Sears kit alone, because of the rarity of them. My brother and I happen to have them, and I held on to them for all these years, and still in half decent shape. So yeah, that's definitely an interesting one, and I still have one still on card back. It's the only one I have left.
The only one I have left on a card back is, I think it's Lando, but it's from Empire.
Mm-hmm.
Empire back. That's the only one I have that's still on a card. I mean, of the older ones, I've got a bunch of Power of the Force, but yeah.
Yeah. This is the only. I had two original 12 backs, which were the first ones, and one was this, which is R5D4, and I had a Luke on card back, Farm Boy Luke, and I stupidly one day decided to open them up and get them out. So, but hey, they're toys. So.
And they did a lot of buttons, patches. I've got when I lived in Maryland, we were right over the bridge from Delaware, and my son's mom was into cross stitching, and there was a big cross stitch store in Bear, Delaware, and also in Bear, Delaware was Factors Inc., who had licensed to make the buttons and the patches and the big cardboard displays. And they were like literally right next door to the cross stitch store. And the first time we went there, they were closing. They were going out of business. And so I bought whatever I could of the original patches and button, the May the Force be with you button. Those, yeah.
Sure. Very cool. Man, all right, look at that. Did Disney get some licenses from Lucas in the deal? I'm assuming Disney one. I don't know.
I would think.
I'm
guessing he kept them. I'm guessing he kept them because he's very. First off, I was surprised that he actually sold, even though he got $3 billion, because he's very protective of Star Wars. We had a theater, the chain I came out to work for here in Kansas City, when the first prequel was getting ready to come out. They had advertised on the marquee, starting whatever, Star Wars, Phantom Menace, and the newspaper had taken a picture of it, but it got back to Lucas, and Lucas complained that the theater was not promoting his film. They were using his film to promote the theater. And he had somewhere, I've got a list of all of the original demands from Fox, including 50% of the concession stand from opening weekend, and it was just crazy. And luckily, all the theater owners got together and said, "No, that's where we make our money. I mean, you're getting 90 cents of every dollar for the first 6 weeks from the box office, but this is where we make our money, the concession stand." But yeah.
Yes. All right. Nate Michael, promise me you won't play Mecca. Just kidding.
Well, I don't think we can play it because we'll get muted again on Facebook.
That's why I'm not pulling any video clips tonight because I'm pretty sure they'd be all over us tonight.
A little whistle in the middle of it. Dun, dun, dun. We'll hum it. We'll hum the Star Wars.
Yeah, get kazoos out, right?
Have you two ever visited Star Wars conventions? I have not. A friend of mine worked the first Star Wars celebration, and I've got a poster signed by everybody that ever wore a mask. You know, Bib Fortuna and Jeremy Bullock as Boba Fett and R2D2 and all of them. I have never gone to a Star Wars convention. They look amazing. I like going on YouTube and watching when they first premiere the trailers, and they film themselves watching the trailers and the way people react. It's one day I'll go to a Star Wars convention.
Yeah, I've never been
big.
They're huge from what I understand. I've never been to one. However, I don't know, second, third year teaching, I'm a third grade teacher, so I have a fun age of kids to work with. I had a little boy who is a huge Star Wars fan. And that would have been, I can't remember if it was episode 2 or 3 that had come out. Maybe it was 3. Yeah, it was 3. It was General Grievous. And his family decided to go on a vacation to go out to see, to go out to Celebration. And they did a week's vacation. And he went and stood in line and brought me back a signed picture from the gentleman who voiced General Grievous.
Ah, nice.
And apparently just for that picture, they stood in line for 45 minutes. I can only imagine how long they stood in line for some of the other pictures.
For the names.
Yeah. And possibly what they paid. Now, the one thing I was at, back, I don't know, my son was pretty young. In fact, I did a little last kind of slide here, kind of connections to things like passing on Star Wars. I took a little liberty here of kind of doing this. What was so cool about it, I passed it on to my son, and one of the things that happened living in Pennsylvania and growing up not too far from Philadelphia, Ben Franklin Museum, they get all the traveling museums in. And when I don't know. It was between, say, episode 3 and maybe when they came back and repopped everything for like I can't remember if it was like the 3D Star Wars re-release. It was one of the re-releases when they went back and remastered the originals and had all 6. You could buy them on Blu-ray.
Right.
And the Star Wars Traveling Museum came to the Ben Franklin Museum and took up the entire second and third floor. And I took my son to that. I think I cut my hand off on some, but there's actually 2 pictures in there. And they had, the original land speeder. They had one of Darth Vader's costumes. They had original Princess Leia. They had some of the actual models that were used for some of the scenes from A New Hope. Some off the wall, incredible stuff. And that was really amazing to see. One of the Yodas from Jedi was there. Really, really impressive stuff. Definitely something I won't forget for a long time. But that's the only connection I have to it. So, all right, we got some more here. Was Hamill, Ford, Fisher the original choices to play 3D? I'll let you take that one, Mike. I know a little bit as far as.
I think so. I don't. I'm sure. I have a VHS of it that I got back in the early 80s. So I'm sure that's. If I had it, other people had it. I'm sure you can find it on YouTube. But there's some great auditions for Star Wars, including Kurt Russell for Han Solo. I think Christopher Walken for Han Solo. But as far as I know, they were the original choices. Harrison Ford was just there to read. He was had basically left acting after American Graffiti, and he couldn't get steady work, so he became a carpenter, and he was doing some work at Coppola's house, and they were holding auditions there. Lucas was holding auditions there, and they had Harrison Ford kind of read Han Solo's line when he was interacting with somebody else, and he ended up, getting the part. But as far as I know, they were the original choices.
Yeah, as far as I know too, I have seen some of the audition tapes, and they're all black and whites. And I can remember, I don't know the lady's name. She was the brunette from Laverne and Shirley. I remember seeing her.
Cindy Williams. Yeah.
Yeah, her test screening. Yeah, I remember for Russell. I'm trying to think. The names that they rattled off.
Yeah, I think William Catt. Might have been William Catt was in there. Pretty much any young actor, and if you remember any young actor from the mid '70s, was in there.
And when you think about the ones that auditioned for it, at least in my mind, you're going, it just wouldn't work out. But who knows? We would never known any different or any better. So
yeah, I mean, we if Lee Marvin or Sterling Hayden had said yes to playing Quint in Jaws, would we not love Jaws as much?
That's true.
Or would we say, well, Lee Marvin's the only guy who could have played that? I couldn't see Robert Shaw doing that. Yeah, Cindy Williams was good Princess Leia.
Yeah, she definitely auditioned for it. The tape's out there. You get your hands on it. Yeah. All right, what we got here? I put off seeing Star Wars because I didn't want to contribute to its besting Jaws at the box office.
I held off seeing it a second time.
Really?
I didn't want my 250 to be the one that put it over the top.
I have to say, I was diehard Star Wars over top of Jaws. Now, I was a little younger when Jaws came out. Jaws 2 was kind of my first big jump into the water. I had seen Jaws, but Jaws 2, I had a stepdad that let me sit and watch Jaws 2 when I was younger. And the only movie to this day, the only movie that ever freaked me out enough that I had any type of nightmares from. And 3 and 4, I can remember watching. I waited until they came out like HBO or something, and you'd watch them. I never got nuts about it, and I really ramped back up Jaws. Ironically, when I was towards the end of college, when the Star Wars special editions were getting re-released, I can remember my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, went to college with me. And we would come into my room, and I would have Jaws on and trying to explain to her who Quint was, and I really kind of dove back into that. Ironically, when Star Wars got re-released, but I gotta say, over time, Jaws has kind of dethroned Star Wars for me, although it's still a second place.
No. So. And this comment here below, I just looked to see who it was. That is my best friend Matt. We have been.
Oh, really?
We have been bosom buddies since 1976. And,
wow.
And I want to say it was September 77 because I went with him when he finally saw Star Wars, and I kept trying to get him to go, and he would say yes. No, I don't want it's not gonna be our $5 that puts it over the top. And then when it finally beat Jaws, he was like, all right, let's go see Star Wars. So, yeah.
You had way more foresight than I did, I can tell you that. Yeah. Way more. Holy cow. Not to mention, much better constitution than I did. Kurt Russell's Luke Skywalker, interesting.
I think Kurt Russell would have been really for Han Solo. He would have been a good Han Solo.
He's got the charm. I mean, he really does. He does have the charm for it, yeah.
I always thought Kurt Russell would have been a great Batman.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if he would have made, well, maybe he would have made a good Bruce. I was going to say, I don't know if he'd make a good Bruce, but now that you say that, yeah, he could pull it off. The ladies' man, the charmer, the guy that's upstairs, a little sly, a little curt when you talk to him. Yeah, he could do that. You're right. Wow. Good call. Without a doubt. All right. And seeing Close Encounters the most between Spielberg versus Lucas.
That was Victor. Matt and I and like 5 other friends, we saw Close Encounters opening night, and I just remember back in my day when you went to the movie theater, you'd pick somebody as soon as school got out, you went and somebody ran and they got in line, and you showed up You know, 2 hours later, in line to buy tickets for the 7 o'clock show, and you brought them a snack because they've been standing there for 3 hours. But I remember when Close Encounters ended, that was the first time that I'd ever seen a film where I was so stunned that the audience was just quiet, and then it just broke out into applause. So it was cool. But I took my dad to see Close Encounters, and he liked it. And I was telling him, well, what'd you think of Richard? Because I was doing his fan club. And he was really good. And I didn't know he spoke French. And I'm like, he doesn't speak French. My dad, because he was used to Richard with the beard and Jaws, my dad thought that Bob Balaban was Richard Dreyfuss. So, yeah.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Why was James Earl Jones the voice used as Darth Vader? I don't know why he was. At least I don't have a direct answer. But yeah,
I can't think of anyone else.
No, and if you listen to Prowse, you know, he was speaking all the lines. I mean, it just didn't sound that good. It wasn't very authoritative.
It wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't that deep. You know, and plus he was British.
Yes.
You know? No, I can't do a British accent, but hello, you are part of the Rebel Alliance and a traitor. Take her away. Hello, mate.
Yes.
So, and I apologize, Connor, and anybody else that's on the other side of the Atlantic. I'm not mocking your culture, but James Earl Jones is just a great choice. He's just got that deep, booming voice. And I know David Prowse tells a story that he took his family to the premiere, and the first time Darth Vader spoke, he was like, "What the hell?"
Yeah.
So when David Prowse, when he used to do conventions, when he'd sign autographs, he would always write, "David Prowse is Darth Vader."
Well, I think up to this day, there's still a very big bone of contention between Prowse and, I don't know if it's Lucas, I don't know if it's Star Wars, but I guess they more or less kind of split their ways, and he was kind of cut off, from what I understand. You know anything behind that?
No, I know he showed up in Empire and Jedi, so he wasn't that angry, because you know you're 6'4", you could have played Darth Vader, nobody would have known it, you know.
Well, yeah, and that being said, I mean, if you ever seen Prowse outside of the uniform, he was a bodybuilder. I mean, the guy was a monster. I mean, he was me with 35 pounds, and I'm 215. I mean, you know, I mean, look at him. Oh, Clockwork Orange, I think, was what he probably started off in. I mean, he was not a little guy, yeah, without a doubt. So we got UFO. It's crazy, 1978. UFO. I don't know if I remember UFO movie. Oh, UFO, unless UFOs in general. I think
in general, everybody was seeing them.
Oh yeah,
he was seeing them.
Just after remembering the Donnie and Marie Star Wars sketch and songs with Chris Christopherson as Han Solo, cringe-inducing. Although Chris might have been a good one for that too. A little older, but still might have been good.
It would have been good.
That would have been interesting. Yeah. Although at the time, I believe he was the duck driving a tractor trailer in Convoy right around.
Right around then doing Convoy. Just wrapped up A Star Is Born. So yeah, he couldn't have done Star Wars. He was finishing up A Star Is Born.
Yeah. So we're seeing Tron erupted when Luke blew up the disc. Oh, it erupted everywhere. Not just
everywhere.
Alec Guinness was incredible in Star Wars. He was, and many of the people said how much they learned from him, because he was so, not just because, I mean, he wasn't Sir Alec Guinness yet, but it was just so incredibly respectful and knowledgeable.
He was Alec Guinness.
Yeah, just good old Alec Guinness. And the next time I saw Alec Guinness outside of the Star Wars world was, what was the movie? Rising the Titanic, or Bringing Back the Titanic?
Raising the Titanic? Was he in that?
Yeah, he was in that. First couple minutes. Yeah, it kind of shook me a little bit. Like, wait a second, what's going on here? So yeah,
only actor to get an Oscar nomination for a Star Wars performance. So yeah.
Wait, Prowse wasn't told. No, he was not.
Nope.
He was Not told.
Surprise.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just a
It's
little
just a little
game.
bit.
All right. Well, that's what I have for tonight. You know, nice little revisit. Definitely got to go back and relive my childhood, Mike, for many years. You know,
I'm glad. I'm
uh,
glad you're a little bit younger than I am, so it was nice to hear a younger viewpoint, and it's amazing to see your collection of toys.
very
I'm sorry,
cool.
action
Yeah.
figures. I apologize.
As long as you don't call them dolls, we're okay,
Oh, that's right. And quickly, I posted a review. There's a movie called 52577 by Patrick Reed Johnson that he's been working on for 15, 16 years. And it's kind of like The Fablemans, where he's a young kid that sees a movie. Um, and supposedly this is all true, but he goes out to Hollywood. He wants to meet Doug Trumbull. And instead of meeting Doug Trumbull, he meets Spielberg because Trumbull's doing the effects on Close Encounters. And then he runs into somebody on the Star Wars set, and he gets to see a sneak preview of Star Wars. And then he tells all his friends about it. And it's an entertaining film. It kind of not died, but it kind of lost me. The second act when he's back from Hollywood, because a lot of stuff didn't make sense. I'm into factual. When I see a film, if I'm familiar with the situation, I like the facts to be correct. I work for the utility company, so I know that digital meters weren't around until the early 2000s. So when I saw the movie, I can't remember the title of it, with Steve Carell and Mark Ruffalo and Channing Tatum about the DuPont guy and the wrestlers, and
Oh yes,
the film open Dreamcatcher.
Dreamcatcher. Yeah.
The film opens. Channing Tatum comes downstairs. He walks past the electric meter, and it's supposed to be the 70s. And there's a digital meter, and I'm like, you're killing me. So, but it's worth a watch. And if you like, it gave him a love of movies he still has. So check it out. 52577.
Yeah, I've seen the preview for it. I definitely plan on going out and checking out. Talking to my son about it as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely something we're going to look into. So, well,
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I will. I guess I'll hum the Star Wars thing. Dun, 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 the Miko version. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah.
that almost sounded like the music for Star Trek there for a second. Like you're throwing a little rhyme in there.
Yeah. Dun, 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 dun. They all sound alike anymore.
Well, all right, guys. Hey, thanks everybody for coming out and hanging out with us. Really appreciate getting the comments and the feedback, Mike. Again, thanks a lot, man. Always
My
full of
pleasure.
time.
Thank you. Put together a
Throwing some
great
awesome
show.
stuff down. Oh
Great
man,
show.
killer stuff. And everyone have a real good night, and we'll catch up with you next week. Coming back around with a little bit of Jaws. So have a good night.
Good weekend. Have a good holiday. Have a safe holiday.
Yes, Memorial Day weekend. Play it safe, have some fun, and man, spend some time with people that are important around you. So awesome. Thank you. All right, guys.
Good night, everybody.
See you guys later.